this hour, the ANC's Gauteng Provincial Task Team Coordinator, that's Hope Papo, says the media is partly to blame for the loss of public trust in the party. Now, he was giving a briefing on the party's two-day Lekgotla outcomes. Papo says the media portrays some ANC leaders as being synonymous with mismanagement, maladministration and a lack of service delivery. Let's unpack this story further with the Executive Director of the Campaign for Free Expression, Anton Harber. It's great to have you with us. Thanks for joining us. And I suppose you and I should both say, just as a start, before we get into this discussion, that we are both journalists. We both have reported on the ANC, and so I suppose we are somewhat biased insofar as this discussion is concerned. But can I start off by saying that this smacks of a bit of a Trumpian response, doesn't it? The relationship that the US president has with those who tried to report on his country.
Yes, I mean, it's a universal thing. When politicians are in trouble, and I think we all know the ANC is troubled in its electoral position, the first target, the first source of blame is always the media, because it's an easy, obvious target. But they're saying the media portrayed the ANC as having a lot of corruption and leaders responsible for mismanagement. But, one would argue that the ANC itself has admitted that it has those problems. It's not the media creating the problem, it's the media very much reflecting a view that's common among journalists, among citizens, and quite widespread. The ANC, I would argue, lost its vote not because of how the media portrayed it, but because people saw that the media portrayal, it rang true what the media was saying, because it's what people experience in their everyday lives.
Can we talk about, Anton, where we would be without the media in South Africa? Arguably, we wouldn't have had the state capture inquiry, the Commission of Inquiry. Think back to the Gupta leaks. That was that cache of emails and various other documents that exposed the influence of the Gupta family in South Africa's government.
The ANC is complaining that they faced a critical media. That's at the core of what they're saying. And obviously, it's hard to face a critical media in the run-up to an election. But being critical, holding the powerful to account, calling out corruption and mismanagement, that is where the media brings enormous value to the political process. The media plays a critical role in saying something's wrong here. Here's something the government, the ANC, whoever's in power needs to address. And so if we didn't have a critical, independent media to do that, then our democracy would suffer and our government would be much less accountable and much less transparent. And yes, you're quite right that without the media calling out state capture and exposing it and driving home the risks that state capture brought to our country and our economy and our democracy, without that, we might never have the Zondo Commission of Inquiry, and we might never have put the brakes on state capture. So it really drives home what a critical role the media plays. But here, it's political parties lash out. I mean, a particularly appalling case is what we're seeing in the US, where Trump and MAGA, his supporters, are systematically trashing any media that's critical of him, and in fact threatening their right to exist and their licensing in the case of broadcasters. We're not facing that here. But the precedent, a very sad precedent, is being set in America, which previously portrayed itself as the home of a free press.
Certainly. And the examples are endless. There are water projects we've reported on, in some cases for more than a decade, water projects where millions, if not billions of rands have been spent and communities are still without water. There are housing projects where hundreds of millions have been spent that lay in ruins and they are unfinished. And the list goes on and on. Tembisa Hospital comes to mind, and the case of Babita Deokaran, who was trying to or planning to blow the whistle on large-scale corruption at that hospital, and we know that she was killed for it. That's partly, Anton, the reason why we now have a whistleblower protection bill. Our reporting on gender-based violence and femicide led to the president holding multiple gatherings with victims and organizations working in GBV, and we now have a National Council on GBV and femicide bill. These are some of the ways in which our reporting of the shortcomings that unfold in our country lead to something good, a step forward.
There's no question. You're absolutely hit the nail on the head. You know, the media has played an absolutely critical role in exposing and helping the government and the state and the ANC address issues of mismanagement and corruption. And there's no doubt that that's a public good. That's to be encouraged. That's helpful to everyone, including the ANC, if the ANC does indeed want to address these issues. And, you know, the ANC says it needs to improve its relationship with the media. Well, improving its relationship is not going to stop that kind of reporting. What's going to stop that kind of reporting is if they take real and substantial and effective action against corruption and mismanagement, rather than simply pointing at the media.
Do you think, Anton, that just given what's unfolding in South Africa, I think last year's elections perhaps showed us that South Africans are a lot more thoughtful about a whole range of things. And I think that's possibly the case, you know, around the world. There's a lot more access to information. People are seeing through some of the more blatant lies that perhaps would have passed 10 or 15 years ago. But do you think that some people in South Africa, for example, will look at this kind of statement, saying that the media is to blame for how South Africans see the African National Congress, that they'll look at that kind of statement and think, no, that's not the case?
Well, yeah, some people will take it on board and blame the media, but I think the results of the last election and the results of the opinion polls we are seeing is telling us that that people are not taking that view. People respect the media for exposing corruption and mismanagement, and people are feeling it in their daily lives, so it rings true for them. So I think citizens showed, you know, it was a great boost to our democracy. Citizens showed that if there is corruption and mismanagement, they will shift their vote and either stay away or vote for others. So it is a real sign of the healthiness, I think, of our democracy.
Anton Harber, thanks very much for joining us this afternoon. Anton is the Executive Director, of the Campaign for Free Expression.